Cocker, thank you for joining me. This particular recording is going to be ahead of the Progression Beyond Doubt coaching programme. The reason I wanted to record certain podcasts ahead of time is because there's a lot of talk about preparation being key to success, and there is a huge amount of scientific evidence behind that. And personally, I do agree that there are certain things you should prepare for. One of those being the mind in preparation for a change, because change cannot be brought about unless you are in the place to accept the change in the first place. You also cannot be in a place to change unless you see the need for the change. So all of those are helped by being prepared, having the tools necessary, certain equipment necessary. So this particular podcast is to try and get your mind into the space of preparation to promote change and to promote progression within whatever goal, whatever dream, whatever ambition, or whatever need that you feel you want to integrate into your life. So what I want to just talk about today is I want to talk about the reason why we have to put certain things in place ahead of trying to make a change. Because as human beings, we are people which, even though you may not realise you're a routine kind of person, the human brain is set up for a routine, because the human brain works at such a rate that it can't just rely on instantaneous movement or action. So, for example, if you are walking down the street, there's a car travelling quite fast to your right, there's also a house on fire to your left. If you just focus on the fast car and not stepping out in front of it, you're going to walk straight into the fire and be burnt. So what happens is the brain obviously focuses on the past lessons it's learned. So for example, you're walking down the street, you're trying to stay on the path. Instantaneously, your brain knows car to the right, fire to the left. Don't walk into either of them. But you're not consciously thinking, don't walk out into the car, don't walk into the fire. That's pattern of behaviour that takes over there. So because as a young child, you've seen some kind of cartoon image, known somebody at school that has been hit by a car, or because you've touched something that's hot and been burnt, which has channeled pain through the central nervous system, that's a pattern of behaviour that then is instilled. Now, if you're going about daily life and you are looking to try and change a pattern of behaviour in what you do, you have to relearn. And I talk about this with my clients all the time, about devising, developing, creating a new neurological pathway within the brain, and to strengthen that by repeating the behaviour. So as a child, if you kept on touching that hot pan, you would keep being burnt. Now, certain lessons that we learn along the way are instilled by the amount of pain delivered with them, and also about how you as a person and your personality can receive pain. Now, a lot of people that have been brought up in quite impactive childhoods and they've had quite a lot of emotional pain or physical pain in their childhood tend to be somebody that can receive pain and not learn the lesson from that. So, for example, if you were quite a clumsy child and you were walking down the stairs every day and it tended to be that you would trip on the last step and fall over and hurt yourself, actually you as a person and your central nervous system starts to accept that as a normal pattern of behaviour. So you trip up on the last step when you're 7, you hurt your knee. Ow, that hurts. But you do it again a week later because you're clumsy and you don't tend to look where you're going all the time. It hurts again. Hurts the following week and the following week. Eventually, your central nervous system has to start dealing with other issues in your life. It has to start dealing with other things. So it will take the attention away from you tripping over the last step, it delivering pain, your body saying ow, your blood cells responding to the impact on your knee. So what happens is the central nervous system actually actively starts to shut off that pain and that action because it can't cope with too much at once, and because it's used to that pattern of behaviour. It's become a pattern of behaviour, so your central nervous system starts to shut it down because it recognises what's going to happen and it becomes more accepting of that. Now that actually delivers through the emotional system as well. So if you start to accept painful moments in your life because they're repeated patterns of behaviour, so for example, friendships at school or a certain teacher that you have at school starts making you feel bad about yourself, or your parents or your siblings, if they start telling you repeated patterns of behaviour, your central nervous system will start recognising what you're hearing, because any sense within the body, hearing, touch, smell, taste, etc., those are all messages through the central nervous system. So if you start being told, you're this, you're that, you're the other, your central nervous system starts to accept that as part of a pattern of behaviour. So you then start to understand this is the norm, this is normality. So actually, you can endure more criticism within life. You become to know that's who you are. So if a criticism comes your way, your subconscious starts to say to you, yeah, I know that already. I don't need to be dealing with that. So what happens over time, to try as much as I can to simplify it and not go too in depth on this, is as adults, and certainly as older adults, we just learn to live with what we have. And we actually tell ourselves, and society tells us, it's just who you are. That's your personality. That's the way you are. And actually, that isn't the case. Because a personality is developed by a repetitive pattern of behaviour. Yes, it is determined, certain elements are determined, DNA, nature, nurture, how we've been brought up, who our peer groups are. A lot of that has impacted who we've become today. But actually, all of it has been impacted by an outside source. The only control we've had over who we've become is how we've interpreted that information that we've received. So, for example, if you're told, and I'll use the example I made about tripping over the step, I hear this a lot. Oh, it's okay, she's clumsy. It's just who she is. She's always been clumsy. Actually, what starts to happen is your makeup in your central nervous system and your brain, you actually start to phase out the care and attention that's required to not trip over a step. So because we've learnt to accept us as clumsy, you are shut down to extra senses around you. Now, you also get the labels where they're so overcautious, they'll never branch out, they'll never do anything exciting because they're overcautious. So what happens with that is we develop that pattern of behaviour. And that may well have come from somebody else. We may have learnt that, and we may have learnt that through a nurture programming from childhood, and we recognise that somebody is very careful. Our interpretation and how we've received that information may have started a small pattern of behaviour in childhood where we're slightly cautious. But as soon as an outside source and our subconscious and our brain starts to see something more than a few times, that is instilled as that pattern of behaviour. What we're actually looking at is how then do we enforce the change? And that's very logical and very easy in principle. So if we've already initially created a pattern of behaviour, the good news is that we can just as easily create another pattern of behaviour. The difficulty, and the reason we don't, is because the more we've instilled that behaviour, the quicker and easier it is for our brains and central nervous system to fall into that pattern of behaviour. So I often use the analogy of a bandwidth for the internet. And if a bandwidth has a stronger, larger cable, you're obviously going to be able to stream possibly 3 TVs through that, and you're going to be able to stream your Wi-Fi through that, and etc. And that usually can withstand quite a lot of internet and information through that bandwidth. If, however, you have smaller bandwidth and less capability, and you try and stream 3 TVs through that, somewhere along the line, it's going to start buffering, and you're going to have to start waiting for it to catch up on itself, and it's not going to be able to take the capacity. That's exactly like the neurological pathways in the brain. They work in an identical pathway. Now, if your pattern of behaviour, if you are trying to force yourself to do something that ordinarily your brain and central nervous system are not used to, you're going to come across buffering. You're going to have to wait for it to catch up on itself. And more often than not, it will just shut down because it doesn't recognise that pattern. So, for example, the 1st of January, we start with the gym, we start with the healthy eating, and the first sign of stress, because it's now back to school, it's now back to work, and we become weary, we become tired, we're not sleeping as well. That's where the body does not have the ability to develop new patterns of behaviour. So because it's tired, because it can't work at full capacity, what it starts to do is it starts to say, we need to go back to the old pattern. We already have the bandwidth there to go down, we just can't work 3 TVs. So what we'll do is we'll just work with 1 television, and the rest of the viewers will have to wait for us to be able to catch up. And the same happens when we become frustrated, when we come across difficulties in trying new behaviours. So what we have to do is we have to start small. So we have to start with the 1 cable for the bandwidth, with the 1 television. So on the 1st of January, instead of saying, I'm going to go from no exercise to exercising 3 times a week, that is too much for your neurological pathways to cope with. So how we have to come at this is we have to look at the best way to build a new neurological pathway in the brain, and that is it actually builds cells which create the actual pathway within the brain. Excuse me. So if we are coming at this from on the 2nd of January, we're down at the gym, on the 4th of Jan we're there, and on the 7th of January we're at the gym, you're going to eventually, when you become tired, say, that's too much for me. And bang, your brain will start sending messages down the old pathway, as in, we don't go to the gym 3 times a week. So what has to happen is you have to start sending information in smaller capacity. And if you start small and you start to do a very small change repeatedly, eventually that becomes a recognised pattern of behaviour. And as soon as you have a recognised pattern of behaviour, you will still continue to do that no matter what else is going on in your life. So today, What I want to do is I want to step you into the Progression Beyond Doubt life coaching program which I've developed. Now, it's not new, innovative information, isn't the program, but what it is it's snippets of and it's daily patterns of coaching which I have done over a number of years with clients, and I have seen success from one certain method. Now, obviously, nobody's the same. We have some people which have to have a feeling first before they can drive through the idea. We also have people which are built in the way that they have to read the idea and research the idea first. They have to believe it within their logical brain, and then they're willing to take on, and then the feeling comes later. So this coaching program has been specifically designed to encapsulate either of those elements of a person's ability to change. So it's a very basic format. Now, the misconception is that if it's basic, it's not enough. That I cannot instill more than anything how incorrect that theory is. And the reason I can say it's incorrect is because I used to have that theory and still do as, again, an actual pattern of behaviour. So what I want to do for today's coaching is I would like to instill a behaviour that a few of my clients have already taken on. So this is easy for them. I would like to set up a habitual behaviour starting from tomorrow morning, and I would like you to wake up in the morning and I would like you to start your day with a hot or warm preferably, cup of water with either a few drops of fresh lemon juice, and a slice of ginger. Now, I need to make these 2 points very, very clear, which are very important. If you suffer with extreme arthritis or painful arthritis, please eliminate the lemon juice because citrus fruit can intensify arthritic pain. The second element is if you are taking blood thinners of any kind, please do away with ginger because ginger is a natural blood thinner. So if you're already taking medication which is thinning the blood, please don't add to that. So your first step towards change is that. Now, that will seem a very simple exercise, but you will be very surprised how many people would not be able to follow through with that every morning. So if those of my clients listening that already have that in place as a habitual behaviour, what I would like you to do is, those of you that already have that in the morning, I would like you to have it 3 times a day. So once in the morning, and when I say a cup, I do mean quite a large cup, please. So every morning you get up before you have coffee, before you get in the shower, before you do anything else in the day. I'd like you to go down, boil a kettle, put some hot water in a large cup, top it with cold water so it cools down, because too much hot water for the system overexerts your system, and we don't want any overexertion first thing in the morning. So just cool the water down, a few drops of freshly squeezed lemon, slice of ginger if health allows, and then I would like you to drink that. Whilst doing so, I just want you to put your head into the space of what your day ahead involves. So whilst you're drinking it, try not to be distracted. Please don't put the news on. Please don't read the news on your telephone. We don't want any negativity coming in at this crucial point of the day. So just sip your water, take your head into the space of what's ahead, and just prepare your brain, your central nervous system for what you've got coming up ahead of the day. And that's your task. So what I do want to finish with is change doesn't mean that you don't have the ability to do it yourself. Change doesn't mean that you personally need to change. Change is there for people that want to just add to their life. Life's very precious. We have to understand that we are lucky to be here. We have to appreciate and we have to show gratitude that we have the opportunity to face another day. So gradually instilling change into that. Give yourself that time drinking the water to actually look at what you do have to be grateful for, no matter what battles you're facing. They may be very small battles, they may be very intense battles, but just give yourself the ability to just feel what you have to be grateful for. It's a great practice, and being grateful allows you to feel internally happier than the state you may have been in just getting up in the morning. So I wish to thank you for listening. I would like to say that these may not come daily before the actual coaching program goes out on the 31st, but they will come in opportunities for you to prepare. So just instill with the water, instill with the gratitude, instill with your thought for the day, and I look forward to speaking to you again soon.